Our guest today is Willie Deutsch. He was elected to the Prince William County School Board in 2015 and served for 4 years. He was the youngest elected official in Northern Virginia when he was elected at the age of 25. He worked hard to engage the public and keep them informed, and worked as a budget hawk to push money into the classroom and save money through more efficient spending. So it's a delight to have Willie with us today, and
great to be here.
Excited to pick your brain a little bit from your own experience in public education. And so let's just dive right in here. Tell us about the school district that you served as a board member at, and what caused you to decide to run and serve.
Sure. So Prince William County is the second largest school division in Virginia, makes the top 100 list in the country, has about 90,000 students, about 11,000 employees in 100 schools. So it's fairly sizable, over $1 billion budget. So a lot of decisions happening there. We had a lot of issues with wasteful spending and kind of a non-responsive administration that wasn't listening as much to parents in the community as a lot of people would desire. And so in the middle of a lot of those issues, we a couple of the sparks that really got the community's attention, we ended up building the most expensive high school in the state, and we ended up building an Olympic-sized swimming pool on top of it at that high school. So people were more interested in money actually going to the classroom to help with education than beautiful fancy building projects. And so I ran for the school board in 2015, served from January 2016 through the end of 2019. So 1 4-year term. We thought we had a chance of having a majority board that was interested in being fiscally responsible and listening to the community. We came up a little short, lost a race that we should have won. One person ended up not running for re-election that we hoped would, but ended up having a fun time on the board for 4 years.
Great. Well, it sounds like you were part of a pretty good sized machine there. And so let's dig into a little bit more stuff that maybe will help us all understand some of your kind of philosophy of the education system and the different roles involved. What do you believe the leading role of a teacher should be?
Well, we've got all kinds of student achievement that we've got to happen, whether it's reading, writing, arithmetic, and SOLs, workforce prep. So there's a lot of work to happen there. And up here in Prince William County, we have some of the largest class sizes in the entire state, and so you get a lot of teachers with a ton of students, and they definitely have their work cut out for them.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say are maybe the biggest challenges that they have in today's culture?
I think a combination of we have very large class sizes, makes it difficult to give attention to students. And then also just parents add a weird dynamic between not taking charge of their own students and making sure that they're either doing their homework or, disciplined and having a level of respect. And so it creates a lot for teachers to try to stay on top of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is for sure. Again, you aren't a teacher, I don't believe, but you've worked with teachers. And if there was one thing that most teachers would wish for, I'm sure you've talked to a lot of them while you served, what do you think that would be and why?
Yeah, I think two things. I think smaller class sizes, lets them give more individualized attention to students, and principals and administration that will respect and support them, understand what they're going through and give them respect, support, listen to them when there are challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's probably a typical workplace thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, since you brought up administration, let's talk about administration. What do you think the leading role of a school administrator is or should be?
Well, so you've got two levels of administrators. You've got central office administration, so superintendent and his staff and department heads, et cetera. And then you've got principals. Principals tend to do a better job of being right on the front line of listening to parents in the community, right? They've got to interact with students and parents every single day. And so if you're creating friction as a principal in terms of your local community that you're, with your school, that's going to come to a head pretty darn fast. People are going to get upset. People are going to get worked up. So it's always important, but I think it's something that's kind of a little more innately built into the role of the principal. They've also got to make the tough decisions with that particular school's budget, or, maybe decisions that different groups of people are pushing them on that, they got to make a call on. The central office administration, they're supposed to be there to support all the rest of the actual education that's going on down below. What often happens is there's often kind of a belief on their end that they know best, and also a belief that adding more centralized programs and administration will help improve things. And so on their end, one of the challenges we had a lot was central administration actually coming to the public and being willing to listen to them before they had actually made a decision. Very often it was, we've made a decision, now we're going to go have public town halls and basically explain to the community why our decision we already made is the right one and you need to come along with us. Mm-hmm. And the public gets sick of that pretty fast. So they're, truly listening to the public, being transparent about data and why you're making decisions, and making sure that the support really is getting out into the schools and into the classrooms. Are all very important.
So where is that balance between the education community, whether they're administrators or teachers, educators, and parents or the community? You hear a lot of this these days in some of the conflicts that are going on. It's like, well, we are the professionals and we know what's going on. We know what's best. And so we are going to make these decisions. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, at the end of the day, it's parents that know their students best and are most responsible to make sure that their kids succeed. They're going to know what, cultures, what classes, what things make their kids succeed best. And so parents have to be listened to, taken seriously, and not, basically told to shut up, listen, and go along, because they're the ones who, are raising that kid year to year to year. They're the ones who live with them every day. They're the ones who want to see them succeed, become awesome adults and thriving later down the road. So,
yeah, they definitely have the most vested interest in the child.
Yeah, so, and so an education community that's just, and you get different educators, you get different administrators that kind of end up being on different sides of it. But when they're like, we've been professional educators for 10 years, we know best. Got to listen and work with parents.
Yeah.
Just have to.
So I think the idea there is really, okay, if you know best, then it's like everything else, then explain it to us until we understand it as well as you do and can support it. And if that can happen, then the parents get behind it and things move forward. But if not, I guess it kind of goes back to the old saying, the customer's always right. And in this case, it's the parents or the customers.
Right. You have to be, no matter how much you believe you're right, you have to be willing to listen and work with parents. And some people do a great job, and some people, in the back of their mind, think it's a waste of time. Mm-hmm. But you've got to be willing to listen and work with parents.
Yeah, that's for sure. So speaking of listening to parents, let's shift to school boards, because the news has been interesting these days. And but let's kind of keep tapping into your own experience. But what about school boards? What is their proper role in the education of our children?
Yeah, so I think there are two kind of dividing lines in terms of types of school board members. Mm-hmm. It's school board members who essentially rubber stamp and go along with the administration, and school board members who understand that they were elected by the community and are willing to stand up and represent the community. In Prince William County, and it's probably pretty similar in most jurisdictions, about 53% of property tax dollars go to the school system. Mm-hmm. So, whether somebody has a student in the school system or doesn't, everybody has a financial vested interest in having quality schools and making sure that they're run well, and that they're not wasting the money that's being sent to them. So making sure, school board members are elected by the public, so they should stand up for the public. That means they've got to be out there listening to their communities. They've got to be out there being proactive. But if you're just going to default and go along with, whatever presentations or programs the superintendent wants, then you really shouldn't be an elected school board.
Mm-hmm. Let me circle back to something you stated. You said there in Prince William County, about 53% of the property tax from the state went into your school system. I think that's, as I have studied this, I think that's pretty much it. Well, let me put it this way. It's an almost universal truth or fact that the majority, even the majority of a county or city's budget goes to the school system. Yeah. I've seen some places, way up, like 3/4 almost of a budget for all county and local, services goes directly into education. So that is huge. I think most people don't understand how much money actually gets pumped into our educational system.
And you've got, well over a majority from jurisdictions, plus it's a huge state financial investment. The irony becomes that we probably get the most regulations from the federal government. We probably get maybe 5 to 7% from the feds.
Yeah, that's true.
So they give a very tiny percentage financially, but regulate the heck out of school systems.
Yeah, that is so true. All right. So talking about back to school boards, what are their greatest challenges? What was your greatest challenge in the board as you were serving?
Yeah, I think school board is an interesting position because you're sort of a legislative elected official, but not quite. So you have to, if you're on the school board, you've got to be there focused on policy and budgets. Like that's what you're doing. If you're I'm a former teacher, so I'm going to make a great school board member, you've got to get up to speed on policy and budgets because you're dealing with the macro policy issues for a school division, right? What affects every school across the division?
Mhm.
You're not coming up with localized, classroom solutions. That's all principal.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with all the macro things, but you're passing policies that sometimes may be at odds with what the administration wants, but they're the ones that are going to be implementing it. So there's kind of a little bit of a push and pull that you have to have, where you've got to know where to push the administration, you've got to know where to work. And so you're not just kind of passing laws and policies in a vacuum and these nebulous other people, in random parts of the state. If you're a state legislature, you're going to go implement them.
Yeah.
Like the people that you're actually working with on a week in, week out basis are the people who are going to be implementing and doing what you're doing. So you've got to know
And
when
you see in the grocery store when you go home.
there's that, but it's knowing, like, all right, how far can I actually push people, right? Like somebody says, no, we can't do it. You got to be able to read and be like, nah, you really could pull this off. And sometimes you got to be like, okay, they're really squirming. I don't think they can do this. So it's just kind of an ability to kind of work with and have a push and pull. And there may be some people who you just have too much friction with, but you've got to keep other lines of communication, bridges with other people open so you can get other stuff done. So a lot of it's kind of relational and one-on-one work, and some of it's the regular actual policy work.
Mm-hmm. And so what about the intersection of parents and community with organized education? I mean, you're kind of the buffer between that as a school board member. I think you made an important statement. The primary focus is policy and processes. However, you also represent them, as you've mentioned. So, talk a little bit about that intersection.
Yeah, so this is a little bit before my time, but back in the olden days, there were phone switchboard operators. And part of what I kind of ended up seeing my role as a school board member was being that person, right? You've got a very large bureaucracy, and you've got a parent who's just going, I just need to know how to get this problem solved, right? And so you as a school board member can at least funnel them in the right direction and follow up and make sure things are taken care of. Right. And so where they may not know to reach out to somebody, or maybe that somebody that they reached out to is a little busy, but the school board member said, hey, pay attention to this person. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work of, getting something resolved inside of a school, getting somebody, maybe the specialized special needs educational supports they need, maybe just boring things like getting bus routes fixed because they're stupid and didn't take into consideration on the ground things. Just a lot of the little things to smooth things over, helping people get in the right classes. All the little things that parents need to try to figure out for their kids. And that's, at times, it's the most fulfilling, because then, you get parents and kids that are really excited that, like, you actually made a difference for their education, and these couple of things made their upcoming school year a whole lot easier.